Hope everyone's having a good day. We are just getting back to the office from about an hour, maybe a 90-minute trip up north. 90 minutes back. Call it a 3-hour round trip. Went up to a place just outside Flint to pick up a pallet of lithium batteries that were supposed to be out to us a week ago, and the freight company was just taking their time, and they said it was going to be another week for them to make it down our way to make the delivery. So we said to hell with it, and we went and picked it up ourselves. And that's kind of the way it is these days when you're dealing with freight companies, because they, you know, some of them are just lazy, but some of them also are very short-handed in terms of their staff. Just don't have enough drivers to make all the deliveries they need to in a timely manner. This would have taken us 17 days to get a delivery from California, and instead we're getting it in about 10 or 12. Can't complain. But it's an interesting example of the massive capabilities this F-150 has. We're driving a PowerBoost. It's our 2021 with the 3.5 hybrid engine, crew cab, 6.5-foot bed, 4-wheel drive, and the max payload on it is about 1,450. We just checked the sticker, and we went a little bit over that today. We picked up a 1,700-pound pallet of batteries. And in reality, we're above that because it's also the weight of the passenger, the weight of, you know, everything else that you just have in the vehicle with you at all times. And the way the vehicle handles is, it is impossible to tell that there's 1,700 pounds of batteries in the back. It's not bottoming out, it's not sort of wallowing, it's not squirming, it's not tail heavy, it's not trying to fishtail on us, it's not trying to get loose in the corners and swap ends or you know, put us in the ditch. It's handling very, very well. And this may be actually the most of a load that we've had in, the most payload. When the forklift driver dropped it in the back, I mean, you could see the springs squat probably at least 5 or 6 inches. And it kind of had us fearing the worst in terms of the drive home. But no, it's been exceptionally smooth. And you just have to hand it to Ford, because when they designed and engineered that rear suspension, they had to do it in such a way that, yes, it could control heavy loads up to and beyond the max payload. But at the same time, they didn't want to make the springs so stiff that it would just, it would be a really punishing ride 90% of the time when you didn't have freight in it. And the fact that the aluminum bodies saved them something like 800 pounds of weight meant that the truck could be exceptionally light when it was unloaded. And that actually made it tougher to dial in the suspension, because if you've got a truck that's super, super light to begin with a large payload, that means the springs have to be able to handle anywhere from, let's call it a 5,500 pound empty weight. You know, maybe 5,500 to 6,000 pounds empty weight. And then you add the max payload, and that increases the weight of the vehicle by a very large amount, by, let's say, 25%. And so that creates a huge variation in terms of the amount of weight that the suspension has to be able to control, whether it's empty or whether it's fully loaded. And so for them to put a set of springs in the back that can control that heavy a load confidently when it's maxed out, but also give you a ride that's halfway smooth when it's empty, is a pretty miraculous accomplishment. They did not do it in the F-150 we owned previously, which was a 97. That thing would make your teeth rattle when it went over the bumps. And it didn't even have that much of a payload. So there wasn't even that much variation between empty and fully loaded. But this thing, again, it's got a huge spread between empty and loaded, and it never, ever feels punishing or harsh or too strong. when it's empty, and at the same time it never ever feels like it can't control a load that's the entire, that brings it all the way up to its max load for that axle, for that rear axle, and beyond a little bit. Our MPGs, we're looking at call it a 90-mile trip with a couple stops, 18.5 fully loaded. On the way out, it was closer to 20, so we did lose a little bit of gas mileage, but you know, we're talking about a pickup truck that's large and heavy, and to get anything over 12 or 13 is impressive to us. To get 20 or 21 on the highway completely empty, that's impressive to us. And all those 2.7 and, you know, 3.5 EcoBoost owners are going to say that's not that impressive at all, because I get more in my I do better in my 2.7, or I do better in my plain old 3.5 without the hybrid. That's great. Good for you. Again, our expectations are in the low to mid-teens for a large full-size pickup truck, and for this thing to get 20 to 21 empty on the highway, going highway speeds between 75 and 80 is almost miraculous. We put it on the scales just to get a scientific measurement, and we'll tell you in a minute what it weighed. In terms of the max GVWR, this truck has a 7350 GVWR. 4,000 pounds is the max load on the front axle, 4,150 on the rear. And that's specific to this truck. It's a PowerBoost with the crew cab, as is every PowerBoost, and 4-wheel drive, and the 6.5 foot bed, and the max tow package. It does not have what we really would like, which is the heavy duty payload package, or the HDPP, that takes your rear axle capacity way up, takes your GVWR up by close to 1,000 pounds, takes your max gooseneck and fifth wheel towing, which we do a lot of, up by 3,000 plus. And we posted all those numbers in a previous video. Unfortunately, though, you can only get that heavy duty payload package with the 3.5 EcoBoost or the 5-liter Coyote V8. And a lot of people think the only reason Ford offers that package to begin with is because they want to have bragging rights for the most payload and the most towing, knowing that most people are never going to need it, so they don't even buy that package. We're getting used to that rear camera. We have not had a rear camera in previous vehicles. I guess our Duramax has it, and so does this one. And so that camera and the 360, it's nice when you get used to it. So again, the max GVW in this truck is 7350, with 4,000 in the front, 4,150 in the back. The reason the GVWR isn't just the sum of those two numbers is because the braking system is not set up for a GVWR of 4,000 plus 4,150, which would be 8,150. And so, you know, and there's not enough cooling and so on and so forth. And so you got to kind of max out one or the other for a total of no more than 7,350. And what we had today was a little bit higher. The front axle was less than the maximum. The rear axle was just a little bit over. The total was, yeah, about 500-600 pounds over. And we do not advocate that type of activity. But the truck handled it like a champ. The truck handled it spectacularly. And, you know, for those who are worried that their truck's going to be squatting and, you know, and all over the road, and you're going to be constantly having to correct the steering when you're in a corner, because it's going to be, again, trying to come around on you. That's just not the case. This is how that load looks back there. Big, heavy pallet of lithium batteries. And we got it as far forward as we could, but it still hung pretty far back there. And this truck just had no issues with it. Very, very impressive performance from a very impressive truck. All right, thanks everyone. Talk to you later.